Hey everybody, welcome to Your Beautiful Table, a YouTube channel and a website all about helping you make your tabletops beautiful, and that includes houseplants. So today we're going to talk about how to propagate a spider plant, so stay tuned. Thanks everybody for coming on back. If you're new to Your Beautiful Table, we're a YouTube channel and a blog at yourbeautifultable.com all about helping you make your tabletops beautiful. And part of having beautiful tabletops are layers, and part of the layers includes houseplants. And today we're going to talk about kind of the care and feeding of spider plants, and also my favorite part, which is propagating or making new baby plants. And I did that recently and I want to share tips with you. Before we get too far, consider subscribing. Right now we have about 512 subscribers, so I would love your support. You can click subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you like this kind of video, share it with your friends, put it on Facebook. I'd love to have more followers, so see if you can help me out. The other thing is we have a newsletter. I use the newsletter to do drawings and giveaways. I promise I won't spam you. Consider signing up for the newsletter. The link for that is in the description box. So now on to the content. I love houseplants. They've become a real fad, but I feel like I was, houseplant cool before houseplants were cool. But anyway, I grew up with, my mom really liked houseplants and did a great job caring for them. She grew up on a farm, and so we just sort of have had like a hobbyist green thumb. And so, it's something I inherited from my mom. Spider plants were part of our household growing up, and I just think that they're really cool. One of the best things is they're super easy to take care of, as you can see here. And so if you have failed at taking care of other house plants, a spider plant is worth trying out. So I wrote down the name, and I'm going to try to pronounce the botanical name, and it's Chlorophytum comosum, comosum. It's comosum. Chlorophytum comosum. I don't know if I'm putting the accent on the right thing, but I will put it. I'll put links to spider plants in the description below. But if you Google spider plant, you'll be able to find this. Now, spider plants come in two varieties that I've seen. There's an all green variety that has sort of a nice chartreuse color green. It's not really a deep green like an emerald or an ivy green. It's a little bit of a brighter green. And then they have this kind, which is variegated, and variegated just means that it has green and white or creamy stripes on it. So I'll bring up one of these pots that I have made already. So I created, so you can see about the plant. So this variegated one has primarily green in the middle and then the white stripes on the outside of the leaves. And the leaves sort of form out of these, what I would call like rosettes in the middle. So they have a middle point, and then the plant kind of grows out or radiates out from that. The plants are easy to take care of. They develop almost like these carrot kind of roots that absorb and retain water. So if you go a few days without watering them, or if the water conditions vary from week to week, these plants retain that water. They hold their water and they can release it. So if you are a traveler and you're like, gosh, I would love to have house plants, but I'm traveling or I'm busy for work, this is one that you might be able to do, like water every other week or something like that. And get away with it. So they're like will take some abuse a little bit and not peter out on you. So if you've been unsuccessful with houseplants because you have an infrequent watering schedule, this one might be one that you might want to try. So these are pups or spiderlets or spider plant babies that I rooted a couple of weeks ago, or that I put in this pot to root a couple of weeks ago. But let me show you on this big one. I will put some pictures in because it's hard for me to lift this one up all the way. But let me see if I can do it. So you can see that there are spiderlets hanging down from this plant. And those little plants, the little spiderlets that are down from the plant are when they mature enough, they're able to root. You can also see over here, and I'll sort of see if I can insert the picture in there, but let me find a spot. Oh, here's a good one. So this is a stem that came out recently, and it's got a blossom. Let me see if I can hold it still. It's got a blossom right here. It's got a nice white flower. They flower only like a couple of times during the season, but you can see a new little spiderlet is growing here, and they'll also have little spiderlets along this blossom stem. So the blossom comes out, it arches over, it's pretty graceful, and then these little pups or spiders will form along the stem of that flowering sort of arching stem. There's another one over here. So there's several, and they definitely came out in the springtime. Maybe they'll come out more throughout the year. But then those spiders form roots, and so let me actually. I'm going to trim one off, and so to trim it off, you could use scissors, gardening clippers, or whatever. But this one, I'm just going to snip off with my fingers. So it's really easy. I just use my fingernail or thumbnail and trimmed it off. But let me bring this up to the camera so you can see the roots. Hopefully, here, I'll stand in front of it so that you can see it in front of my blue shirt. But there are these kind of fibrous finger-looking things right here that are the roots. And so once the roots begin to get like this or even bigger, then you can begin to think about transplanting this spiderlet into soil. You just kind of want to be sure that the soil covers up the roots so that the moisture of the soil adheres and gets near those roots. And then that's really all there is to it. You want to keep the soil evenly moist for several weeks so that the roots begin to grow and it can really form robust roots. But then those roots will grow down, the leaves will grow up, and you'll have a new spider plant. So I think when they're just like this, it can look a little bit skimpy. So you probably, unless you have a very small pot, you probably want to have a couple of these spiderlets in the pot together. So they'll form individual plants, but then you'll get a big, full, beautiful plant like this where you'll have multiple sort of smaller plants inside of it, but the overall effect is one large plant. So let me find another one here that I might want to trim off that is looking good. And so once I trim these off, you could probably just trim back these green stems that the flowers were on. They're not going to make any more if the flowers have already set. And so, I just pinch this one off and I can put them together like this. And I have a pot. I put in some potting soil. All that you'll really need to do is, you might get your hands a little bit dirty, but it's regular, I use like Scott's potting soil or something. You could use a stick if you don't want to use your finger, but I'm just going to use my finger and make a little hole just deep enough to kind of put these in. I'm going to try to get the leaves out of the way, tuck them in, and push it down just a little bit. I'm not going to push it hard because I don't want to damage the roots. And then I'm going to use a very, very light touch with the water. So let me turn this over without trying to spill. So you can see I've just gently put the plants down into the center of the pot and gently press them. It's not really damp, but it's just the lightly moistened potting soil so they'll hold it in place. And then I'll come back and water this. This pot does not have a hole in the bottom, and so that's probably okay. I really prefer to use terracotta pots that have a hole in the bottom. It creates good drainage, but the pot that I had available in the garage just didn't. So if you have pots that don't have holes, you want to be sure that you don't overwater your plant. You don't want the spider plant or really any plant sitting in water, but this looks pretty good on its own. So I'm going to, give this a drink of water, keep it, monitor it, make sure that it doesn't dry out, and those roots will kind of just grow on their own. During the growing season, you can probably fertilize them with like a Miracle-Gro fertilizer in a diluted solution, a weak solution, once a month or so. In the winter time, when it's not in the active growing season, you can pull back on the fertilizer and not fertilize them at all. Some tips that I have, I just fertilize all my plants with regular tap water. So whatever comes out of the hose or whatever comes out of the sink. And with this particular spider plant, I haven't had a lot of brown tips. There are a few brown tips on some of them, but not a lot. So these are actually new leaves that have grown out, and you can see that either the water that I have in my home is okay, that comes from the water treatment plant. It's not causing any problems. But some folks say that water with fluoride or chlorine or those kinds of chemicals, and it might damage the leaves. And so if you experience brown tips, it could just be that the plant's aging. You know, leaves are not going to stay around for a long time. So if you got damage, you can just reach in, trim it out, and pull it out. Sometimes they'll get crispy and fade, and you just pull them out because you know plants age and they grow, but they're growing out these new beautiful light green leaves too. So the point of the story is if you're getting brown tips, consider maybe using distilled water or using rainwater that you capture outside, or you can use household water and maybe fill up an old milk carton or container, let the water sit so that the chlorine and stuff evaporates overnight, and then use that sort of room temperature. But I don't baby these. I just sort of like, you know, do with them whatever. Here in North Carolina, we're in zone 7, and so this can be outside after the threat of frost and grows really well out of doors, and it can handle the summertime temperatures. And then it's a house plant. It needs temperate environment, not too hot, not too cold. It, frost will kill it, so you want to bring it in during the winter time. And as a house plant, you want to be sure that it stays in bright indirect light. So bright indirect light means close to a window, but not where the sunbeams are coming through the window. And so if you place this outside in your garden during the summertime, you want to be sure that it never gets those bright sunbeams on it, that it's protected either under a canopy of trees, under an awning, under an arbor, something, umbrella outside on your patio, so that this it stays protected and doesn't burn. So it can be susceptible to leaf burn. And again, watering regularly. I watered this one until it drains out of the bottom a little bit, and I have a little bit of a plate really or a saucer, but I just don't want this to stand in water. So too much of a good thing is too much, and by that I mean don't overwater. So I do Thirsty Thursday and water all my plants on Thursday. And once you get to know a plant, you sort of know how much water they need before they begin to wilt or show signs of needing water. And so I put, I would say a couple of cups of water on this particular plant. And then these other ones, I just water as needed. But here's a plant or a set of pups that I put in this terracotta pot a couple of weeks ago when I was cleaning up the bottom of this one, and so it's done really well. But you can see the terracotta pot. I love the way that the salts come out of the pot. Here, I'll bring it up. The salts come out of the pot. Some people would be like, ugh, that looks old. I don't like that look. Well, it looks like it's been well used in sort of a garden pot. And then I find that patina and age look really looks good. So let me think back through, make sure I've talked about everything that I want to talk about. We've talked about what great house plants, spider plants are. They're easy to care for, bright indirect light, temperate climate, can be outside just after fear of frost, fertilized with a mild fertilizer like Miracle-Gro, a couple of times a month during the growing season, just to keep them nice and green. We've talked about how to pinch these little spiderlets off and place them into soil so that you can have new plants in a couple weeks. This will be able to give to a friend, hostess gift, those kinds of things. So friends, if you like this kind of content, again, consider subscribing. I'm really glad that you joined us. Tabletops are great places for plants, so that's why we're talking about it on your beautiful table. We'll see you next time.